Okay, so we're going to do slate now, just displaying for all the cameras. Four. Slate is to display for all cameras. This is another one-on-one for Health Matters. Good. All right. Rolling cameras, rolling sound. This is take one.
My name's Jackie, and I'm originally from Northern California in Sacramento, but now I've been living in Monrovia for over 20 years. And I'm a staff member here at Fellowship. I get to work here. And this is after being, gosh, over how many years in the entertainment industry. So God had a new assignment for me, and now I'm here as a project manager.
My name's Jen, and I live in Pasadena, but I was born in Azusa, and I'm a stay-at-home mom and a writer.
Wow, great.
As Asian American women in general, do you feel heard?
As an Asian American woman, it's interesting because no, I don't feel heard. And I just made a connecting the dots of, I'm a TV watcher. I was growing up watching TV all the time and did not see myself represented a lot, hardly at all. And I just made the connection between not seeing ourselves represented and understanding that gave me kind of a lack of confidence in having a voice, or that my voice mattered. So I repressed that a lot. Yeah, so I don't feel like we are heard. How about you?
That's an interesting question. I almost didn't want to do this interview because I don't know if I can speak from the traditional Asian perspective. I grew up very much a chameleon of whatever environment I was in. So to ask me as an Asian American, do I feel like I'm heard? I don't know if I can answer that. I can only answer it from a perspective of possibly being a woman, and in different circles, sometimes I do feel heard, but other times I don't.
Yeah, I understand not wanting to, or what did you say, in terms of not wanting to be here and speaking out. I too, I see that. I want to see more of us speaking out, but then when it comes to actually doing it or being asked to do it, I don't want to, because I don't know if I have the right things to say, or if I need the right things to say and I don't have the words to say it, and I don't know if I'm even making sense now, you know, that kind of thing, that voice in my head, I keep editing myself.
Yes, I think there's always this voice of what's expected of me and what it and who it is that I am.
Yes.
And so I think that's the difficulty of being raised in an environment where I was just taught to acclimate to everywhere that I was at, is that
That's
wanting to adapt to whomever I was around, and not really knowing who I truly was in the midst of that.
Who do you wish your family talked about that they never talked about?
In my family, it was very interesting that we didn't have deep talks. Everything was very surface, and even now is very surface, to the point where sometimes when things happen in the family, we don't even talk about it. I think there might be a lot of shame involved in that. We don't outwardly speak about what might be termed as negative, or, you know, something wrong with us, or, you know, we wouldn't think about going to therapy to talk to somebody because then there's something wrong with us. Yeah,
I can totally identify with the shame piece, that, you know, a lot of it was rooted in shame. So speaking about struggles or difficulties, I think were always off the table. And I wish that we could have talked more about that. I wish we could have talked about how they struggled or how they saw my grandparents struggle as being first-generation immigrants, and how they wrestled with even racial issues of being
Right.
Asians in a country that was not like their own, and the adaptation into that, as well as how did they manage bringing their family over into an unknown place,
Right.
and how they got through that.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to go to Angel Island, and I visited Angel Island. I don't think I said I'm third generation Chinese American. And I went with my grandparents to visit Angel Island, where they came over from China. And they gave me the story, the parts of their story, and their struggles. But there was a lot of struggles that I'm sure I never heard about. But I also know too that they saw the white culture, the dominant culture, as the standard, and that's what they aspired to do and be like. My grandfather is a successful restaurateur, or he was he was a successful restaurateur. And my grandmother was the woman behind him and raised 7 children. My other grandmother came over, also from through Angel Island, and she had to escape her abusive husband, my grandfather, that I never met, and raised 5 children of her own. So, yeah, it would have been nice to hear more from them directly what their story was. But I think that shame or the embarrassment or just not being, maybe the language barrier as well, prevented that from, and they were also just trying to make it, just make a better life for their kids so that their kids can make a better life for us, But yeah, we didn't hear much beyond that.
Yeah, I think I wish I would have learned more about my own ethnicity a little bit more as a child. And then I think that I wouldn't be so confused today, possibly. I think that my mom grew up in Hawaii during World War II. So she was 12 years old when Pearl Harbor was bombed. And so her experience with that was coming from a child who was discriminated against her best friends because she was Japanese. And the trauma I think that she experienced, she relayed on to us in an effort to just hide who she really was. And it wasn't until within the last few decades that we as her children were able to ask her about it. And she did share what she was feeling about that and everything, and it was good to hear because I could understand where she was at and how that generation thinks a little bit more. Growing up half Japanese and half Korean, I experienced a lot of odd questions asked by usually a lot of older Asian men and women who would ask me my ethnicity, and when I would tell them, they would always look at me strangely like, oh, that's a odd combination. And so I always grew up wondering, like, was there something wrong with who I was because I was 2 different Asian ethnicities. And they would tell me later on that something happened in the war and that's the reason why there was this tension around that. And usually the older generation was very, they really looked at the different Asian ethnicities as something to be separating
Yes.
us. And so to see that 2 ethnicities came together that shouldn't have been together was always a very interesting thing for me to be curious about.
How did they come together, your parents?
So they were born and raised in Hawaii, and my mom is from Hana, which is a very small part of Hawaii.
road to Hana.
Yes. And my dad actually lived further down the road in a really small town called Haiku, and they didn't meet then. It wasn't until they went and moved into the bigger city that they met. But my understanding was that their parents were not very approving of the marriage itself. And, you know, who knows what that really was, but that they didn't even come to the wedding.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So growing up with that and not really understanding it, it just was kind of more like a fact that I did understand that there was tension even between the different Asian.
Oh, yeah.
Ethnicities.
I remember my grandmother. I mean, you know, she kept telling us, "I'm Melly at 16. You go Maine now." and the second thing was, "You Melly, nice Chinesey boy." And of course I didn't. I married an African American man who waited until my grandparents passed away before I brought him home to meet the rest of the immediate family. So, yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't want to be the ones to, you know, I didn't want to be the one to make them, shock them, or have to explain it, and put him in that hot seat of uncomfortability, you know, so, yeah.
You both mentioned kind of a standard that you were held to. Can you talk about that personally, what that was like for you? What even is like, what is that like now for you? As that plays out in your life right now?
I think I'm just becoming aware of that standard. I don't think I was aware of it for a very long time, so I kind of just played into it. So as I'm beginning to understand who I am and who I want to be, I'm trying to break that down. So that's kind of where I'm at with my journey. And
I didn't quite understand the standard that I understood to be held to in the Asian community, in my Chinese American community, was about being successful in the ways that to be successful financially, to be successful, to have a nice job, to be going to school, to get good grades, marry Chinese or Asian, and to be good at math. I'm not good at math.
neither am
I have to say, I think I'm a pretty good driver, though. So there are, you know, there's standards, and then there's stereotypes, and then there's the standard of seeing the dominant culture as the standard. Why does that need to be the standard? I don't know, but that's what we are socialized to see and live like, and to be like, and to reach. And not until recently in my journey with racial reconciliation, with fellowship, do I understand that race wasn't even a thing, and it's a made-up thing. And why did we need to be separated and put into boxes and, you know, categorized? Why? And that's how we all think now, and it's a thing. And I don't think we can go backwards. I don't know how to go backwards. I don't know how to erase that, except to look to God, to understand and to pray that all my brothers and sisters will see each other in the image of God and not just themselves. And I'm speaking about white people. That my white brothers and sisters will see all of us as brothers and sisters, not as a race of different races and different stereotypes and biases that go with that.
Final question, quick answer. Do you have hope for racial reconciliation?
I do. I feel like conversations like this that were never really being had before is already progress towards that. And I think that there may still be people who don't get it and don't want to participate, but I do believe that the majority will be people who will be in situations that they want to participate in, and that they will want to be in more uncomfortable situations. It's going to take a lot of time, but I
Yes.
believe that the progression is definitely headed in that direction.
I would like to see, I do see people who are willing to stay at the table. And I believe that, my hope is in God, that God will soften people's hearts and to want to just get to know each other before we start giving into those stereotypes and biases and prejudices, and we'll do the work, not just see that there's a problem, but work towards breaking down the systems that just kind of, perpetuate the problem. And just continue to have these conversations gives me hope, like you said. Yeah, I want to see the next generation to not have to have these conversations and not have racism as a thing, and not to keep people down, and to, just lift each other up. I have hope in that.
Any final remarks to each other?
I think that the most important thing is that we all need to respect that we're all on our personal journeys,
Yeah,
and that not everybody is like each other's journey, and that I think that the sooner we can do that and allow people to be where they're at, the sooner we're going to get there. Because I don't think that we're allowing spaces for it to be messy. We want people to get it or get out. And I think that if we allow people to not get it and not shame them for that, then I think that the healing will begin.
thank you. Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you. Oh, my goodness, we do